It's March 17th, 2026, day 18 of Operation Epic Fury, and the big question that everyone is asking right now, will the US unleash special operations forces on the ground or some sort of other full ground invasion? Short answer up front, could special operations units like Delta, SEALs, and Marine Recon be used? Yes, they can always be used. It's always a potential, but the big question is, what do we have to gain from that? And a massive boots on the ground invasion just seems ridiculous after the global war on terror showed that in Iraq and Afghanistan, that's really not the best option, to say the least. And right now, at this point, it doesn't look like it's needed yet, because air power is crushing Iran from afar. Over 7,000 targets hit from the US, and in the last 12 hours, Israeli strikes near Tehran dropped Ali Larijani, that's Iran's de facto leader post-Khamenei, so the leadership's essentially gone. And also the besieged commander was said to have been taken out. Stacking on targets of different air defenses, missiles, and factories have been turned into rubble. But Iranian missiles and drones are still poking their nasty little heads around at different Gulf nations, hitting some ports, hitting some airports. But at this point, the US is owning Iran militarily. They are completely crushing Iran's actual air force. So stay to the very end, because we'll talk about how soft raid special operations forces and special ops forces could target command nodes that are right now potentially helping to keep the Straits of Hormuz shut down for American traffic, and how air power like the A-10, the F-15, and the F-35 would back them up hard, and why air dominance hopefully will keep ground forces to a minimum, and right now it's keeping them to zero at all. Let's pop to X for the latest updates. So here's the latest breaking news coming from US CENTCOM, a little fact checked here. They say Iran's IRGC claims it recently destroyed several US fighters based in the region using missiles and drones. Lie. No US fighters have been struck by Iran. In fact, US Navy and Air Force and Marine Corps fighter aircraft continue to demonstrate unmatched lethality. So I really like these fact checks. Total targets. So here's a little overview, little briefing. Total targets struck looks to be 7,000. 6,500 combat flights and 100 plus Iranian vessels damaged or destroyed, and then lots of different aircraft involved in the situation. And then types of targets. This is very interesting. We got command and control centers, IRGC headquarter buildings, IRGC intel sites, integrated air defense systems, ballistic missile sites, as you can see all the way down the road, Iranian Navy ships and submarines, Iranian air defense systems, anti-ship missiles, military comm capabilities, ballistic missile and drone manufacturing, weapons production and storage bunkers, surface-to-air missile facilities, military support infrastructure. So lots being struck right now. So on my channel, you all know we cover aviation, global tensions, military conflicts, and how fast the world order can shift essentially overnight. And in the military, one rule is drilled into your head constantly. Always plan for contingencies, never assume smooth sailing. Right now, wars are erupting, massive spending is devaluating the dollar, and history shows when financial systems get hit hard, everyday people like you and me feel it first. That's why protecting your savings with something real matters, like premium gold and silver from American Hartford Gold. Physical metals hold value through inflation, chaos, and shaken trust, unlike just numbers on a screen. American Hartford Gold has an A+ Better Business Bureau rating and thousands of 5-star reviews. Get metals delivered to your door or in a tax-advantaged IRA, and tell them Max sent you, and you could get up to $20,000 in free silver with your first purchase. Call 844-599-1189 or text Max to 65532, or just click the link in the description. Whether you're flying jets or navigating life, preparation always pays off, so protect your wealth with something proven. And then this just released about an hour ago. This shows Iranian targets that are posing threats to Americans and neighbors being hit, missile launchers, drone launchers, and as you can see, Iran trying to hide these things, hide them wherever they can, basically at this point. They've hidden them in farms, hay storage buildings, in treed areas. They think that that's keeping them safe, but it's definitely not at this point. And then quick update that came in from Admiral Cooper from CENTCOM. So let's have a listen to that.
Apparatus behind them. And we are doing that today. We've talked about it in concept. Here's what it looks like in reality. Let me show you for the first time a few examples of how we are dismantling Iran's defense industrial base, which will prevent threats to the region into the future. Here you see a photo from March 1st of a naval drone storage facility located near the Strait of Hormuz. This is the same location 8 days later, completely destroyed. Next, here's a photo taken of an attack drone production factory in Tehran on March 5th. Here's that same factory 6 days later after a devastating barrage of U.S. airstrikes. And finally, the Yazdi military depot, pictured here last month. These 8 buildings are part of the IRGC's missile command infrastructure and are used to produce light and heavyweight torpedoes. Now, here's that same military depot just last week, or what's left of it. U.S. and partner strikes are doing exactly what they are intended to do, deliver on very clear military objectives to eliminate Iran's ability to project power against Americans and against its neighbors. We're also zeroed in on dismantling Iran's decades-old threat to the free flow of commerce through the Strait of Hormuz. Through a combination of air, land, and maritime capabilities, we have successfully destroyed over 100 Iranian naval vessels, and we aren't done. We will continue to.
So Admiral Cooper just said they are zeroed in with air, land, and maritime capabilities. So lots of different things in the toolbox when it comes to CENTCOM. There's 2,500 Marines coming from the Marine Expeditionary Unit that are on their way there, said to be there within about a week, maybe 2 weeks. But for Admiral Cooper saying land capabilities, does that mean that there's the potential for these special operators to go in and strike certain sites along the Straits of Hormuz or different C2 command and control areas that are actually allowing the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps to still continue to talk and control the different UUVs, underwater unmanned vehicles, and those Shahed drones? But it is really good to see those Shahed drone facilities being destroyed near the Straits of Hormuz. That's massive. But again, when you talk about land capabilities that Admiral Cooper mentioned, does that mean strikes on the land with fighter jets? Does it mean actual surgical strikes, special operations teams going in, making sure that nothing along that coastline has the ability to operate? Because you've heard me say it before, at the end of the day, the Straits of Hormuz is the last bargaining chip for the Iranian regime. And every tool in the toolbox right now looks like it's being thrown to keep the strait completely open. And then some other breaking news. This article came in from the New York Times. The headline says, "This is not our war. Europe and UK push back against Trump's demands." So yeah, it's not your war, if that is the quote directly from the UK. It's not your war. However, in a couple months, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps would have had missiles that could hit the UK. So yeah, might not be your war, but you'll likely be the benefactor of keeping Europe safe. And at this point, it seems like that's the way it's going to go. But it is interesting that they're publishing this. Maybe this is just focused on the warships, but the UK is said to have offered up mine hunting drones, basically giving the okay to send mine hunting drones to the Straits of Hormuz. And the country that we know rejected the warships demand was France. And yeah, big shocker. Oh, France isn't sending warships? Oh no, what are we going to do? The US Navy has 3 carriers coming into the region, but we don't have France's little frigates with baguettes and delicious pastries. Looks like nobody in the Straits of Hormuz is going to have dessert. But again, it would be nice to have the allied partner step in, and I think this is an opportunity for them to come in and help. But at the end of the day, a lot of these other navies aren't as battle tested as the US Navy. The biggest naval projection force on the planet is the US Navy. So these other countries' navies, they might be a little intimidated about this operation. They haven't seen the operational tempo that the US Navy has seen, and they might not just have any confidence in their ability to actually step in and help. So at this point, maybe they would just get in the way, and France knows that, and that's part of the reason why they're not actually going to send their warships. So the US, as you have seen, have completely shredded Iran's power projection. Navy, missiles, drones wiped out. President Trump called their military a paper tiger with very little firepower left, and hopefully at this point now putting all of the force that the US has into opening up the Straits of Hormuz. And now the plan looks to be putting all the resources into opening up fully the Straits of Hormuz and not allowing Iran to target US ships, because they're allowing ships from some countries to go through, like China and Turkey, even though they launched a ballistic missile into Turkey's airspace a couple times. Yeah, whoops, sorry about that. Why don't you bring some oil tankers through as just a little thank you and sorry for the ballistic missiles. But Iran's rhetoric is fire at this point. Agarachi says no negotiations and defense defend as long as it takes versus the illegal war. The IRGC is threatening US companies, claims that it's going to hit all the tankers from the US, and calls this an endurance game where they're trying to just wait everything out and strangle the energy. But the reality is their conventional forces are crippled, limited, and now they can do little pokes at bases and ports, of course, with their one-off drones and ballistic missiles. But what will hurt them the most at this point is taking away their ability to threaten the Straits of Hormuz. And would that be with special operations forces? Let's get into it. So thousands of targets are vaporized, leadership decapitated, their navy's a ghost, their missiles are scraps, and air supremacy right now lets us dictate terms with minimal risk. So would it buy us anything to put special operators in Iran right now? Maybe in some very, very limited operations going in, taking down some hard to reach areas in the Straits of Hormuz itself, basically setting up de facto naval bases for the US itself in the Straits of Hormuz to protect the straits and keep shipments flowing. Would special operations be a part of that? Well, they could be a part of creating some sort of a base. So they would go in first, set up an area, basically some sort of a structure or a big area where the US could then launch their own counter UUVs, have their own air defenses, and that kind of thing might throw Iran for a loop. Or even Karj Island, having special operations forces there and basically using Iran's defenses and their networks against themselves to watch and look and see how everything is talking to each other in the Straits of Hormuz. So I look at special operations forces at this point as being something that goes after the brain of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps that is currently sending out these UUVs and these drones. And then you team up those special operators with the A-10 Thunderbolt II, built for this exact thing, having constant air power overhead. I mean, the IRGC is likely not going to mess with any type of unit that's on the ground going in and basically hoovering up their data, doing sensitive site exploitation at places like Karj. They're probably going to try to stay as far away as they possibly can. But who knows? They could get a little handsy. And then you have that A-10 up ahead with its 30mm cannon. And that sound of the Burt would be satisfying even the most hardest to please IRGC member. That could chew through bunkers, vehicles, anything coming in to try to go after that small special operations unit. Delta Force, Navy SEALs, Green Berets could be focused in on any command and control C2 that's allowing the IRGC to still threaten the Straits of Hormuz. So they would need backup and air cover essentially at all times at this point, as well as counter drone technology like microwave drone technology that could be used to take down any type of these small drones that would be going after this small team. But think about Delta forces raiding hidden command posts that are keeping the Straits of Hormuz active. That would be huge, and it might be necessary here in a month or in the next few weeks. SEALs could be hitting leadership bunkers, Marine Recon securing key nodes, and then the A-10 flying over top of all of them, keeping all of those teams safe from drones or any other forces that might come in and try to mix things up. But these would be surgical operations and not massive boots on the ground operations like we saw in Iraq and Afghanistan. But these would be brutal for the IRGC, and it would take down the last little nail in the coffin that would be needed for the IRGC, because the last thing that they're doing, the last holdout they have, is focused on the Straits of Hormuz. So let's move to the 4D chess strategic analysis section. So if at some point, let's say in a couple weeks, the US realizes that now they have to go in after these very sensitive control nodes, maybe they're underground, and the US wants to get control of them and not just blow them up, to see maybe how the command and control talks to those UUVs, those underwater drones. So you could send in a Delta team to go in and basically take control of command posts that the IRGC is using and stop the flow of those UUVs, and see how the different fast attack boats that are remaining, since the main Navy has been taken out, the Delta Force teams could go in and see exactly how these different networks are still talking to each other. And you learn a ton. That would be the goal. SSE, sensitive site exploitation, for you acronym lovers. And that would be a surgical precision strike. So the goal here would be surgical strikes with special forces, preserving lives, forcing concessions, and a smart path to control the Straits of Hormuz. What do you guys think? Do you think we'll see special operations used in this war anytime soon? Let me know in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you think. Go ahead and follow me on X, follow me on Instagram. I'm posting there pretty much every day. And then go ahead and click the link in the description. Become a member of the Max Ready Room. I do priority replies to the members on the lives. And then go ahead and watch this next video that pops up right here. I'll see you in the next video. This is Ryan, also known as Max Afterburner, signing off.